I did a stint as VP of marketing at a web video company called Quantum Shift TV, but nowadays I work for this software company called Zambi. I'm going to talk a little bit about the uptake.org, which is a Zambi client, and I'm still a board member. Our CEO at Zambi is the chairman of the board of the Uptake. And why I'm excited about it and why I think Russell invited me to talk here is because this is one of the examples of innovative new experimentation in how we do journalism and that Tony's talking about in the Big Thaw. So, fortunately, I have a
hard to tell what that was, but it blew up. I don't know if you can see it from there. Wow.
You may have caught the Uptake's live coverage at the Republican National Convention. We seemed to have cameras wherever the action was and were reporting what was happening hours, if not days, before the legacy media.
And the gassing has started. And we have running.
So how did the Uptake, a nonprofit that operates on a shoestring budget based on the kindness of donors, manage to outdo the multi-million-dollar corporations? Simple. Train, organize, and crowdsource.
I can totally help you with this.
We discovered people learn the most when we do hands-on, one-on-one sessions to cover the basics.
I plug in the microphone, I turn on the camera, I point, I shoot, and suddenly I'm telling my own story.
Okay, now you've got a bunch of people who know how to run a camera and are ready to go out and cover news. So what do you do next? Well, you got to organize. And we do that the same way that we organize a political campaign. We turn to free services available on the web to keep track of volunteers, story ideas, events, and of course equipment. We didn't have our own equipment to start with, so we created a database of tripods, cameras, microphones, and so
on. That's a pretty good overview of how the Uptake operates, and I think it speaks to a number of the key competencies that Tony's talking about in the Big Thaw. So just to reiterate, their model is based on training a core of volunteers, training citizen journalists that this tiny staff that the Uptake can collaborate with, and then putting a lot of focus on doing old-fashioned community organizing to get those people involved, to organize the volunteers, and then crowdsourcing not just the content, but really crowd filtering the content, because much of what the Uptake does is live streaming of long public legislative hearings, candidates forums, and so forth. I'll say a little bit more about that. So just some more detail. The Uptake model is really not purely crowd-powered. It's citizen-powered but professionally managed. They have 2 part-time paid staff currently. They're running on I think roughly about $150,000 a year, about 15 core volunteers, and they've trained over 200 citizen journalists. And they leverage technology in some really interesting ways. So for collaboration and coordination, they use Zambi. Their entire website is a Zambi group family. That's a term we use for what Zambi allows you to do is create lots of collaborative groups in a community and then to cluster them into groups of groups, which is something you can't do with other platforms like Google Groups or Meetup or Ning or Facebook groups or so on, where you can have activities going on in all of the groups across an organization, discussions, documents, events, posting photos and videos and so on. But then you can actually aggregate those up. All of that data can aggregate up to a group family workspace, a group of groups, and you can communicate more efficiently from the group family down across your community. For coverage, as Mike said, they use services like Livestream, Cover It Live, Twitter, Quick for live streaming video from camera phones, and then use Twitter and TubeMogul for disseminating. That model of having the live streaming video player on their homepage with right below it the live blog from Cover It Live is a really powerful, it's a simple but really powerful tool for getting the audience to essentially log the video. So an Uptake staffer can go and set up the camera, make sure that the feed is streaming for a legislative hearing, say, and then they don't have to sit there and watch it for 6 hours till their eyes bleed just to find the interesting bits, because the audience is commenting on it, and every post is time-stamped. They'll recruit volunteer moderators for those discussions. They'll have invited experts who can offer some interesting perspective, and invite the audience to add their comments as well. At the end of that session, the producer can come back and scan through the chat transcript and find the interesting bits, and then within about an hour cut together like a 5-minute highlights reel of the day. That was the model that they developed during the 7-month gavel-to-gavel coverage they did of the Al Franken, Norm Coleman Senate recount process. And they had as many as 15,000 people simultaneously logged into that live blog. Not all of them commenting at once, it is moderated. But and so they were able to quickly turn around a daily highlights video and then use TubeMogul to get it out on YouTube and a dozen other video sharing sites. And then the other piece that they've done really effectively is to network, create a model of networked journalism within the media space, primarily in Minnesota where they're based, but nationally and sometimes internationally as well. So, for example, the Star Tribune newspaper in Minneapolis and the St. Paul Pioneer Press occasionally have taken the Uptake's embeddable video player and posted it on their website when they want to have live coverage of, say, a candidates forum, a candidates debate. Even political reporters from those newspapers will sometimes say, hey, are you going to cover that congressional debate going on 200 miles out in the countryside? Because if you are, I can just watch your video player and I don't have to go and cover it myself. So, and then because the Uptake makes no bones about having a strong progressive POV, they are willing to work with volunteers who care about the issues that they're covering. And so nonprofit organizations and activists who have a perspective on the issue will come and volunteer to cover an event. And their rules are not that you have to be objective, because if you had to be objective, you wouldn't be able to cover a lot of the events you care about. Instead, you have to be fair, accurate, and transparent. And so people who create content for the Uptake can't just post it without it being checked by the staff and approved. So the Uptake uses Zambi with that group family structure. They've got 2,600, I think, registered users. Most of them are people who want to contribute to the effort. And they have local groups in mostly cities and states across the country. So people can cover an event in, say, Denver and post it to the Uptake Colorado group. Then that content is available for the national staff to post on the homepage. This is their website. Again, it's theuptake.org. Take a look at it. There's some of the groups. And they've done some really innovative coverage of major events over the last several years. Republican National Convention in Minnesota in 2008. The entire last 2 legislative sessions in Minnesota, they became after the Republican Convention in 2008, the Uptake became an accredited member of the State Capitol Press Corps in Minnesota. They partnered with Mother Jones magazine to cover the Sonia Sotomayor confirmation hearings in DC. They had a camera set up in the hearing room and had journalists from Mother Jones posting in the live blog rather than just taking their notes privately. So they were interacting with the audience that way. They've licensed footage to a number of legacy media sources, and then here's some stats about their traffic so far. Most of the revenue for the Uptake to date has come from grants, donations, and licensing fees for some of the video footage. They had some of the best footage of Amy Goodman, the host of Democracy Now!, being arrested during the Republican convention, and that gave them a nice little source of revenue at that point. And going forward, the Uptake just recently got a grant to explore new revenue streams. And so one that they're working on is partnering with some of the legacy media organizations in the Twin Cities to create these customized live event video players, so that for, say, the series of gubernatorial debates this summer and fall in Minnesota, they will create a player that would be co-branded, say, Star Tribune and the Uptake. The Star Tribune would be able to serve their own ads within that player, and there'll be a small setup fee and revenue share on ads beyond that once that setup fee is recovered. The subscription and licensing fees piece of this, I think, is really interesting, because by archiving all of the video that the Uptake is capturing from the state legislature and all of these events, city council meetings, state legislative hearings, there's an incredibly valuable archive of footage that other media organizations will be interested in licensing and being able to browse through, to pay a subscription to be able to browse through this archive and license some of that footage as these candidates filter up in the next couple of election cycles to higher levels. So there's some huge potential there. The Uptake is partnering as well with Spot Us, or partnering with an online magazine, online newspaper called Min Post, to do a project funded through spot.us. And then we had an application into the Night News Challenge earlier this year to partner with journalism schools in several states to spin out new Uptake affiliate organizations in various states, and to basically to replicate what we've established in Minnesota with the state legislature, doing the live streaming of major hearings and major issues. So that's essentially the story with the Uptake.